Thank you for coming, everyone, and I'm delighted to chair this talk with Pan. Pan is an associate professor in Chinese and Asian studies here at our very own uni. Her teaching and research focus on love, marriage, and family in China, as well as the intersections of gender and media. She is a leading specialist on love and marriage in China from the late 20th century to the present, demonstrated by her publication and track record. Wouldn't all of us want to be an expert on love and marriage?
Yes.
She is the author of two single author monographs, Love and Marriage in Globalizing China, published by Routledge in 2015, and a brand new book, which I can show off and pass around today, just out last week, right? Perfect timing, Love and Romance in China, from comrades and partners to AI lovers, Bloomsbury 2025. I think we should mark these when we publish our book, because it's a very big thing. I mean, by the time it comes out, it's ages away and you think, oh, whatever, and move on. But I think we should mark it and we should celebrate. This is a great achievement, Pan. So I'll pass it around. She's also the guest editor of a special issue of the journal Social Sciences on the theme of intimate relationships in diverse social and cultural contexts, published just last year. And some of her recent major articles include Love During the Cultural Revolution, Evidence from the Couple's Private Letters, 1968 and 1977, published in the Journal of History of the Family in 2022, and Going Solo, Analysis of China's Single Economy Through the Date Renting Industry, published in the Asian Studies Review in 2021. She's also our very own Deputy Education Convener in our school. And her presentation today draws from a chapter in this latest book, which is going to focus on the politics today. The focus is on the politics of love in Maoist China from the 50s to the 70s.
Thanks so much, Mina, and also thank you, Eureka, for the introduction. And I'm also very happy to see everybody joining the seminar today, being surrounded by, highly achieved leading scholars like you, and I look forward to our discussion after my talk. Acknowledgement of country. I acknowledge the Gadigal and Gadigal peoples as traditional custodians of the land on which we're coming together today. We pay our respects to elders, past, present, and extend this respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders people, sovereignty never ceded. So let me get started. My topic today is the politics of love in Maoist China. So we'll focus on the period from 1950s to 1970s. Please go next. So this is our agenda today. I'm going to start the talk with the love letters of a send-down couple. Send-down couple also means educated youth. I'll explain further later. And then we'll talk a bit about 1950 marriage law and the patchy progress to gender equality. This will provide us with a background, a historical background of love and marriage in China. Then we'll move on to the land reform and new class categories that shake up mate selection and marriage, focusing on the period from 1950 to 1953. Then love under collectivization. Here it refers to agricultural collectivization from 1953 to 1960. And love across localities. Here I'll focus on the social institutions of Fukao and Dunway, and also the rural-urban divide. And then we'll focus on the Cultural Revolution period, the political ideologies, class struggle heightened during this decade. And so let's get started with the love letter. Shall I stand up so everybody could see me and I'm more comfortable standing up? So this is a book called 10年, 10 years, written by a couple, Cui Jibao and Li Guiru. Cui is the man and Li is the women. So the two attended the same school, secondary school, and became friends. That time, Cui was 20 and Li was 16. So they, however, they get separated and assigned to different farming villages, or called that production corps during that time, because of the send down movement, down to the country movement. Whereas when around 16 million youths from urban place were either coercively or voluntarily being sent down to the countryside to study from the peasants. And then they had to communicate their love and emotions via letters. So these letters are all published in this book. So 200 of them were published. They've written 437 in total during this decade. And during this period, they did meet occasionally, but they seldom really meet each other in person. And their romance basically was carried out, interpreted, and negotiated, and maintained through these love letters. And but that time, they wouldn't call this love letter. And from today's perspective, yes, we call them the love letter. And these letters later will show you some of the text, and you'll see they're pretty tight-lipped on romance and very implicit expression of love. You will see politically prescribed languages all over the place, including the revolutionary catchphrases, which shows the Red Period, the Maoist, revolutionary style, and comrade style of love during that time. Next, please. So this is Cui, and this is Li, and this is a marriage photo that they had later. If you look closely, and I'll just explain, 诸毛泽东, 诸毛主席万寿无疆. So basically each letter they wrote to each other all had that title, Long Live Chairman Mao. And also, very interestingly, for the way how they end each letter, they will say, I shake your hands tight. So this is very comrade style way of closing a letter. And next one, please. So this is a vignette from the letters. So in August 1970, you will notice this is the zenith of the Cultural Revolution. So Li wrote to Cui under the heading, I wish Chairman Mao limitless longevity, first of all. And she then penned, we should only help each other as comrades and not cross the line. So crossing the line means, to love or to show expressions or to move their relationship further. So they were pretty happy to stay as comrade and friends. Otherwise, it will not be good for you, me, and the revolution. You can see they actually were thinking and prioritizing the big family, which refers to the social communities, the country, and for themselves, they think they should really, not really thinking about too much of their personal relations or their own families. I hope you can forget this. I don't say love, but this indicates our love. I hope you can forget this and give it up completely. So forget about our love and march forward lightly and in great strides on the revolutionary avenue and entrust everything about yourself to the party and to arrange. So basically, you can see the politically prescribed languages all here, but they did have that love and emotions they were trying to inhibit and disguised within this text. Next one, please. And after that letter, the couple ceased correspondence until almost a year later. So in May 1971, Li sent Cui another letter designed to save their revolutionary friendship because the couple really wanted to maintain their connection, their intimate connection, but they were afraid of too many things, political factors especially. And Cui replied that he felt hurt when he had read Li's letter, but that he had understood her suggestion. So Cui gave and they fully understand each other. So the couple's subsequent correspondence were centered on the relationship between personal matters. He refers to love, intimate relations, and the revolution. So you can see the couple constantly were struggling and juggling between personal, intimate relations and the revolution. They don't know where they place themselves in this nexus, and they were trying to find a way to express and convey love to each other and get each other to know they love each other, and how they should maintain the purity and fidelity of their friendship. Friendship here, of course, we all know that means love. They call that 友情 instead of 爱情, love. Next one, please. So we'll start with we'll come and visit the letter, more text later. So in 1950, China, as soon as the PRC was founded, the government promulgated the marriage law. And that law prohibited feudal marriage practices, basically concubinage, arranged marriages, forced marriages, and child betrothals. Those were all banned because they were considered outdated, and really they were prohibiting China from modernizing. So free choice, monogamy were promoted at the same time. Campaigns, poster campaigns like this, saying freedom of marriage, happiness, and good luck. You can see everywhere at that time in the early 1950s to promote this marriage law. And of course, this law also required marriage registration as a way to standardize how people married. But earlier on, there was no registration. And minimum marriage age was established 18 for women and 20 for men at that time. Next one, please. And so there are pros and cons around this marriage law. The benefits of that marriage law is it has built a modern socialist framework by reorganizing family and gender relations. We see dramatic changes between the relations between men and women, despite still a lot of lingering legacies there. It helped to stabilize the social order because people married, they register. And also marriage presumably were based on love. That consolidated the power of the new political regime because the government basically get the people's marriage in control, right? So that also strengthened the state regulation of private life. This is also a way through legal legislation, through law. The government can also regulate people's private life. Later, we'll see there are more legal frameworks and policies, guidelines, like the resolution will come up. We'll come to that later as a way to control and manage love and private life. And young adults, they gain greater autonomy to choose their marriage partners because they can use the marriage law as a weapon to protect themselves, to say, I can marry the one I love. I don't have to follow arranged marriages or anyone that their parents arrange. And this is a marriage certificate that I took a photo of when I was visiting the Taikon Elders community last year. So a marriage certificate that was in the 1950s during the Maoist period. You can see what's interesting in that certificate is it says the highest order and 为人民服务, serving the people. So you don't really see this kind of slogans, political slogans nowadays in China. So that was something that's interesting. I took a photo of. And next one, please. Of course, there are problems with the law. And the law became a divorce law in practice because so many women, they wanted to escape their already arranged marriages. They wanted freedom and love. So then, because those marriages had already been arranged, then the marriage law became a weapon for them to escape from those and fighting for divorce. And yes, so almost 90% of the divorce initiators were women during that time. And illiterate women didn't really know how to file for divorce. So who told, despite those campaigns in rural China, and despite those films or whatever media campaigns the government running, there's still a lot of women left, were being left behind. They don't know how to file divorce, especially in remote countryside. So it didn't really foster, this is my argument, it didn't really foster an atmosphere in which individuals could love, marry, and divorce freely. So individuals, basically you can see patriarchal constraints, kinship networks, and stigma around divorce. They're still, pretty much there and pretty solid that prohibit a lot of women from divorcing. And in many families, husbands' families felt they paid for their wives because they need to pay a bride price. And therefore, they're being stripped of hard-earned, especially reproductive assets, and they've lost control of women. And women still were, being seen as commodities during that time. And Chinese women faced difficulties filing for divorce. That's the situation due to different kind of factors. Family opposition, especially parents-in-laws were not happy, and it's also compounded by admin procedures and stigma those. So these are, other problems. There are more than what's listed here. Next one, please. And so that's a bit about the marriage law that we now understand, and then how that shaped gender, marriage, and family in China. And now we're moving on to the land reform, which also happened starting from the 1950, early 1950s. So we'll focus on how class as a factor really shaped people's intimate relationship and mate selection and marriage during this time. So before 1950, over 70% of the Chinese population were so before 1950, landlords and rich peasants, they pretty much made up barely 10% of the Chinese population. But these people they owned over 70% of rural land. And whereas peasant farmers constituted 90% of the population, they owned only 20 to 30% of the land. Just to remedy such inequality and boost agriculture production, the government implemented this 1950 agrarian reform law. We call that ARL. So it's nationwide. That was pretty successful in modern Chinese history. So the picture shows the land reform staff publicizing the land reform law to peasants in 1950. If you look closely, peasants were happy because they gained their own share of land. Also women, they also gained their own share of land. That's the first time they got their land so they can crop and work on the agriculture field and own some money. Work points and tied to money. So that also increased women's mobility. So that's a good sign, right? And farmers got their equal share of land. They were also pretty happy. And so the primary goal of the land reform was to eliminate the landlord class, as a social economic force and redistribute their land, including land and tools, animals, and landlessness for peasants. So these resources basically were redistributed, and the state wanted to be equal for farmers. And so the revolutionary event fundamentally reshaped Chinese society, consolidated the CPC's power in the countryside. Next one, please. Soon after that, a few months after that, the government then implemented resolutions on differentiation of class status in rural areas. So under this guideline, this resolution, rural population was grouped into different class categories based on the land possession. So land possession really, that's related to the inheritance of land from parents, and also the nature of the labor. So peasants were grouped into these three categories. The exploiting class. The exploiting class, they were known as the bad class, so including landlords, rich peasants, warlords, regime officials. So they're bad people. And the exploited class was known as the good class. So they're the good people. And they are the poor peasants and lower middle peasants. And you can see this class struggle between these two, right? And the in-between class also include middle class, upper middle peasants. So next one, please. So this is just an image shows us the speaking business rally during the land reform. You see the exploited class, the peasants, they were mobilized to denounce the former landlord. The former landlord was one of them. You can see we're kneeling down there and being condemned, criticized by peasants, and saying, you know, how much land you confiscated from us earlier on, and then you deserve death, you know. So all those kind of things. So landlords, around 1 million landlords, end up being killed, you know, because of the land reform. Next one, please. So we want to know the impact of the land reform on gender, mate selection, and marriage. As you know, these rural population were divided into these different classes. That created a barrier to love and, of course, mate selection. So cross-class love became pretty difficult, and there was a hierarchy in this mate selection because of class. And people tend to choose partners within their class category, known as class endogamy, which is similar to India's caste marriage. And few married across classes during that time. So good class, we know the poor peasants, they had ample opportunities for partners because they're good, and they were reluctant to marry someone from an inferior class. It's okay for them to marry the in-between class. It's really bad for them to marry the bad class, but that was possible. Yeah, but it was just impossible in practice in many ways. And bad class was disadvantaged and had very limited choice in partners beyond their own class. Because who wanted to marry a bad class? You know, you get a really poor reputation, little resources, and being gossiped by others, looked down by others. And for bad class people, if they want to marry better class people or good class people, they had to compromise to marry, which means they did accept partners who are older or, you know, less educated or look not as good looking as they imagined, and with poor health, etc. Just a lot of compromises that they need to make. But class conversion under this resolution was possible through marriage. Based on that, women could move in down class status through marriage depending on the duration and extent of their participation in labor, which means if women, they get involved in labor for about 1 year, and that's productive labor, then that women were eligible to convert bad class to good class, and but not for men. So it's very gendered here. And there was no regulation on the class conversion of men through marriage. So labor is used, we can see labor here is used by state to shape intimate and marital relationships. So women could convert class through marriage. You can see that provided flexibility and mobility for marriage, which is a great sign. However, they convert based on their husband's class category. This also indicates the patriarchal constraints here, the underlying patriarchal thinkings by the politicians or policy makers during that time, that's embedded in the resolutions. Women have, yes, they gain mobility, but they're constrained at the same time. Still, you know, wherever their husband go, they can go. Yeah. And next one, please. So then we'll move on to the agricultural collectivization from the early 1950s to 1960s. So 1953, so the Chinese peasants, they were mobilized to return to their state. Okay, so they've gained their land through the first land reform in 1950. So peasants were very happy. And then not long after they gained their land and enjoy their happiness, then they had to return their land to the state because that time the state wanted to boost in the heavy industrialization following the USSR model, and they needed to boost agriculture to facilitate that change. And so collectivize the land, that's the land that returned by the peasants, then were amalgamated for collective farming. So you can see peasants, they're all cropping the agricultural land together there during the Great Leap Forward from the late 1950s. And peasants, they formed cooperative teams and merged into large communes during the Great Leap Forward. Further stage of communization. Yeah, so socialization to communization. And also, if you remember Cui and Li, the letter authors, they were assigned to the production corps. That's the part of the cooperative teams during the Great Leap Forward era. And increased women's labor. Okay, because of collectivization and boosting agriculture, this agenda, that increased women's labor outside of home. So women increased mobility, we could see, because of this policy. And the collective work arrangements provided opportunities for male and female villagers to stay together, meet with word, and form close relationships. So this is a space for potentially for love, right? And this is also, at the same time, there were recreational activities that arranged by the state. So they can all join that there. So this kind of lifestyle is pretty different from the previous lifestyle that men and women had. And so group recreational activities became pretty popular, especially among young people. And next one, please. So here, during the agricultural collection, there is a book called Hongqi Geyao that I looked into the songs. That's, they call it revolutionary songs or Song of the Red Flag. Hongqi Geyao, I looked into that. There was 300 love songs of the Great Leap Forward that gathered from ordinary people of different ethnic backgrounds and nationwide. So I'll show you some examples to show how intimate love were closely intertwined with revolutionary love and political ideologies during that heightened political period. And so you'll see the connection of this erotic interest with CPC values and collective goals. In case people don't know, CPC represents Chinese Communist Party, okay, or CCP, whichever you call that. And so you will also see the confluence of personal political interests being conveyed in a very meaningful, often humorous and humanly realistic way. Next one, please. This is an example. So if you see the example, one is called "Who Would Love You Without the Red Flag?" So, by the way, the red flag here symbolizes honor, political loyalty, and collective achievement. And here, I feel reads by the river. He sits by the river fishing for carp. He only looks at me reflect in the water. Even when a carp bites the hook, he doesn't care. He earns few work points in the commune. So people, they make work points through agricultural labor work. So this work points then could be converted to money or things they could purchase, other stuff. Yet he sings love songs to the girls in the hills, no matter how sweet the sun or how fat the fish. Who would love you without the red flag? So we know what the political, so red flag is a political symbolism, right? So this is all central to Mao era campaigns, meaning to strive for excellence in production and ideological performance. So you can see the women's affection really depends on the man's political and productive standing, right? If he doesn't really do well professionally, politically, then she wouldn't show any affection. And the boundary was clear, right? And this poem also reflects the Maoist gendered ideal of being politically conscious, right? And judging male worth by class and labor. And you're going to be good class and get involved in productive labor, then that creates the attraction, the sexual attraction. And it's pretty playful in a way too, right? So that turning the ideological language into a kind of teasing. But overall, work first, love second. And you can see evidence in this example. And next one is another short one called blowing the mouth harp loudly is useless. So mouth harp in traditional Arahu culture, mouth harp plays a key role to courtship ritual. So it reads, no matter how loudly you blow your mouth harp, the girl's heart won't change a bit. If you win first place in the Great Production Drive, that's the during the Great Leap Forward production, then my flowered pouch will naturally be yours. Flowered pouch symbolizes love, affection. So usually women's affection to a man. So for a man. So you can see the girl values labor achievement. So it says first place in production, right? And over sweet words or music. So that's what girls love during that time. And so Hebao is a handmade gift that representing affection and fidelity. So now then becomes a reward for political accomplishment. So the girl is saying, if you do well in the production, if you did win the first place in the production during the Great Leap Forward, then potentially I will marry you, right? So this is like an indication, way of expressing love throughout the text. Next one, please. Next one, yeah. How's my time? Okay, so
It's just decided to freeze for a moment.
yeah. So just two examples here that shows us, during the collective agricultural period, how love was manifested. So these songs, if you look closely, yes, they're propaganda songs, glorifying the CPC, justifying the Great Leap Forward policies. They indicate some composers also deliberately borrow this revolutionary fervor to reconfigure the very romanticism that Maoist cultural workers are supposed to resist. So it's a way to express love. This is also political itself. At the same time, it serves as a catalyst to glorify the government's political campaigns and its and to, in a way, to justify and legitimize the government's control. And so it's also reflecting women's transformed identity from domestic to socialist worker. Next one, please. So if you look closely at these songs, there were a lot of things that we can unpack. So at the same time, there were compositions, not just these songs, compositions, and also popular in the official discourses that echoing such kind of ideologies. For example, Deng Yingchao, who's a revolutionist and a women's rights pioneer, also wife of Zhou Enlai, wrote an article in 1952. So this article distributed nationwide and served as propaganda tool. And that letter, in that article, she interpreted love and marriages in socialist society, which was fundamentally different from those in feudal and capitalist societies. So there was a clear boundary between love in socialist China and love in capitalist and feudal China. And they kind of grouped the feudal and capitalist as in one. And they are based on complete equality of men and women and their joint participation in socialist economic labor. So labor and love, they were seemingly closely intertwined. They can't be separated. And since love develops when the political and ideological wills of two people coincide. So without labor, without love, that is to say. And there was clear distinction between small family and big family during that time, also echoed in Cui and Li's love letters. Next one, please. So Deng Yingchao, basically, she argues about love that's also echoed in many other publications. And here are some of the common features I outlined. So love is not really a private matter, but has great social significance and is linked to patriotism and collective interest. So collectivism, patriotism were highlight themes in these discourses. And these discourses also criticize the dark side of love under capitalism and praising socialist love. And there was proposals to the right approach to love. People were trying to figure out what's the best way, what is the right, correct way to love someone. And that is the answer mostly was through labor, right? And love is an ideologically charged concept defined with the framework of communist morality. So communist morality values, they were penetrated basically into people's understanding of love and instilling patriotism, etc., all at the same time. Next one, please. So another thing we'd be wanting to know is the social institutions like hukou and danwei play a key role in shaping people's mate selection as well. So in 1958, hukou, household registration was divided. So China's population was divided into the rural and urban. So rural people, they get the rights to farm, and urban people, they receive ample resources like free education and free medication, healthcare, etc. Lots of social entitlements. Basically, that also created this social inequality between these two cohorts. And so that divide, that distinction at the same time, provide this spatial hierarchy for mate selection, because the rural people want to, marry the rural, and the urban people wanted to marry the urban. And although, sometimes rural people, they want to marry across this geographical location or residential divide, it's really difficult. And few urban residents relinquish their urban residency status as a result after rural status. This is, a lot of compromises need to be met, and a lot of difficulties in this mate selection. And at the same time, danwei also played a key role here in shaping people's mate selection. We call that work unit. That is a work unit that organizes the urban communities. And danwei provide this lifetime employment or iron rice law. We call that 铁饭碗 in Chinese. So once you get a job and being managed by danwei, then you don't really worry about losing your job. You've got pretty much everything you needed, and you've got a big parents who really take care of you and your family. And so danwei also organized leisure activities for employees and monitoring people's lives. You can see the function of danwei itself really justifies control to people and their family intimate relations. So they do monitoring people's private lives. You've got these local leaders of communities. They play a very important role in observing what's happening on a daily basis, like couples, if they're quarreling, where there's an extramarital affairs, and they will fingerprint that and then give them a lesson saying, this should not be the case, etc. So there is basically at different levels of the government, we can see that created from the work units that mediate people's marital relationships and also punish workers who enter an extramarital romantic relationship. Also at danwei, the work units, girls in their 20s tend to get offer from their supervisors, because their supervisors, they wanted to introduce and match up the woman, the young lady, with someone else. But when that happens, when that's a rejection from the girl, then that could have repercussions at workplace. And so danwei, they were really concerning about people's life and private relationship. Next one, please. So from the mid 1950s to early 1970s, we mentioned the up to the mountain, down to the countryside movement. So that's when the millions of urban youths being sent to the countryside to learn from peasants. So once that happened, the state authorities, they discouraged youths from dating and also asked them to postpone their marriages in 1969 because they think the youth, they should really play a leading role. Sandang youth should play a leading role in getting involved in productive labor, work, instead of spending time on love or other kinds of things. And some also, as a result, many youths just suppress their affection and high feelings of love. So as you remember, Cui and Li, these letter authors, they were among these Sandang youths. They suppressed their love and feelings to each other. Some kept romances secret without really, others knowing. Others reported to work supervisors. And so, for example, if I say I love you to somebody, and that somebody would report to supervisor instead of responding to me. So that was also uncommon. It was not uncommon. However, many formed intimate relationships with peers, peasants, and also indulged in this sex and love affairs, evidenced by this high-level cohabitation pregnancies. So here you could see a paradox, right? So on the one hand, you see self-restraint, because people suppress their feelings and love because of these heightened political ideologies and class struggle. They think they need to prioritize their work and get involved in labor production. On the other hand, because they're away from their parents, right? They're in the rural side, so they've got this freedom to love and indulge themselves in sex and also experiment premarital cohabitation. This is self-indulgence. So we do see this parallel existence between self-constraint and self-indulgence, ironically, during that time. Next one, please. So this is a very interesting period. And when the sundown period started from the 1960s to 1970s, that also overlapped the Cultural Revolution period. So during this Cultural Revolution period, I quote here from Liu, who says, both personal love and subjectivity were suppressed or channeled into the supplemented collective energy. So collectivism played a key role, and class struggle played a key role in shaping love. So love, romance, and intimacy were seen as tainted by capitalist lifestyles. So that explains why the letter authors were taciturn about love at the beginning of their letters, and also the Zenith period of the Cultural Revolution. So they don't really talk about love. And dating also hindered political progress. If the work unit knows someone is dating others, and others may gossip toward dating. So what is that? And that will hinder the person's political progress, like obtaining CPC membership. And CPC membership is important because that creates a pathway for one's political advancement and also professional development. And so professional promotion, other work opportunities were also compromised. And public display of affection that time, like hug, kiss, or whatever intimate behaviors you can think of, subject to gossip and criticism. So gender neutral was a key feature, also genderless and also loveless. These words could capture the nature of people's intimate interaction during that time. Mostly were underground. Right? So sanctions were imposed through fear during that time because of gossip, because of potential repercussions at work if you don't do well or not in line with the political expectations. Then you tend to be, you will be in trouble. So you can see personal relationships too were mostly comradeship were being converted to comradeship, and love being converted to friendship. 5 minutes. Next one, please. So also that time, people were obliged to choose politically correct partner to marry, so which means similar class. And background checks was also common for a certain group of people, but not to everyone. And this, as a result in numerous separations. And usually during that time, one's first date is the lifetime partner. And for marriage celebration, next one, please. That's pretty revolutionary style as well. As you can see in this photo, wedding photo, during the Cultural Revolution in rural China, couples were holding a shuffle with the bride and groom in the middle. They're wearing this paper full of flowers, smiling, and also at the same time holding a farm tool adorned with this red silk because they've just finished their work in the agriculture field. Next one, please. And at the same time, it's very common to see on the marriage certificate during the Cultural Revolution text like this. Never forget class struggle. So even when you get married, don't forget class struggle, etc. The establishment of social system has opened a path for us to reach an ideal state, but achieving that ideal still depends on our diligent labor. So labor is the core. Next one, please. And you can see class struggle, labor, etc. Here is just briefly mentioning the flirting in street or paipuos in Chinese, catch a woman, that happened in the major cities in China, especially Beijing during 1967 to 1968. That's a year right after the smash of the Four Oaks by the Red Guards. So these little Red Guards, they got no work. They're employed. They feel boring, so they kind of wanted to indulge themselves in love and romance randomly in the street by saying, "Can you date me?" You know, in street to a woman. That's very common. And so this tide, however, declined in 1969, and these group of youth then being sent to the countryside to work with peasants. So if we revisit Wang Li's letter, they were pretty taciturn about love at the early stage, and in line with the political ideologies. And then their correspondence became increasingly affectionate. That's when the vein of the Cultural Revolution started. And then they also discussed a lot of topics and misconduct in production corps, which also suggests sex indulgence in the production corps in rural China, and self-constrained and self-indulgent, also parallel. This also is evident in their letter. Next one, please. So in conclusion, so we talked about the freedom of marriage. That became policy, however, didn't really convert to love in the end. We talk about class, impact on love and intimate relations, also revolutionary passion that closely intertwined with personal matters. Personal matter here refers to love, and also romantic affection being instrumentalized by the state, that reflected in all kinds of discourses, like the song of the red flag, also the Cultural Revolution. We see the interesting phenomenon of the coexistence of self-constraint, self-indulgence, and then the impact of Foucault and Dunley. I hope I didn't really take too much time.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right.
Sorry, it's speaking a bit fast.